Local programming on KRWG Public Media made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG Public Media, TV, radio, online. News that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Casey Counts. Ruidoso and surrounding communities are still recovering after the devastating South Fork and Salt wildfires that ignited June 17, 2024. 2 people lost their lives, thousands lost homes, beloved pets, and many may have struggled financially and mentally in the wake of the fires and the floods that followed. KRWG Public Media has been grateful to have stayed in contact on a regular basis with officials there, including Ruidoso Mayor Lynn Crawford. He's back with us today to talk about how the community responded to the emergency, how it's come together over the last year to rebuild and heal, and how it's preparing for the future. Mayor Crawford, it's nice to have you back with KRWG Public Media. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me back, Casey. It's great to be here.
Well, I want to start just by asking how the community of Ruidoso came together to mark the 1-year anniversary of the fires.
Yes, we had a group, a coalition, if you will, that put together a meeting yesterday at Wingfield Park. It was a beautiful day. A lot of folks out. We had music to talk about, the 2 lives that were lost last year, and then all the things that happened to us just with the fires and the floods, and then moved on to the things that we've been doing over the last year to get back to life as normal or the new normal. And then to talk about, Ruidoso 2.0, the things that we want to see in Ruidoso. But the overall theme was that we recognized that we were able to do it by working together. The village, the county, our partners at Mescalero Tribe, all the surrounding sister communities, everybody reaching out, pushing together in the same direction is what's made it possible. So it was a good day, good event.
And I want to focus just a moment on the lives lost. Just 2 years earlier in the McBride fire, 2 lives were lost as well.
Yes.
How have you thought about prevention in terms of lives lost? What can you say about the situations that maybe people should know?
Well, and I mean, we are constantly preparing, with our emergency services, our emergency manager, on alerting the community, through sirens, through radio, we have a cell phone app system called Call Me Ruidoso that immediately we can reach out with, texts on warnings, what to do, how to evacuate, things of that nature. So we've tried to really improve that. Now then we have some big speakers with not only sirens on them, but also voice activated so that we can tell people what is the emergency. Is it a fire? Is it flood? Is it the oncoming wind events? I mean, just what is it? So we've improved that. We now have our own local radio station on AM and FM stations that stream so that we can better communicate. So we've just done a lot more to reach out to the community, having community meetings like we had yesterday. Just putting speakers and PA systems on all of our utility trucks throughout the total community so that we can reach out fast when we need to. But also talking about, fire prevention, hardening of homes, defensible space, things that we've done anyway, but just really adding to the tempo of that message, especially during this time right now when we have so many fires all over the state.
Yeah, I definitely want to get back to that. And in the meantime, I want to talk about the property lost. The last count I remember was 1,500 homes in the fire, but quite a few more lost in the flooding that followed. Do you have a sense of what was the total, in property loss and the economic value of that?
Well, roughly, you're right. The total loss is still in that neighborhood of the 1,500. We lost between the village and the county, about 600 and nearly 700 homes and out structures. They could be garages, shops, buildings to the fires. But then the subsequent 9 floods that we had in the community and in the county took out quite a few more homes. And so the total estimated loss of property and things of that nature in the county here is about $500,000, so $500 million. And to date, we've spent roughly $60 million in rehabbing from debris removal, desilting the river, improving water channel ways, culverts, things of that nature. So we still have a long way to go. We've done a lot and made a lot of progress, but we do have a long way to go.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. You said $500 million, right, in terms of damage?
$500 million in damages, yes, ma'am. And that's just an estimate, a swag, because there's still estimates that are coming in between the county and the village. Working a lot with the insurance companies, and the counties had to come back out and do appraisals. All of those things have been working steadfastly since, just a week or so after the fire last year.
Can you share a little bit about what someone might be experiencing who is choosing to stay and rebuild?
Well, there's a lot of things. We lost a lot of our, let's just face it, our industry is tourism. And so there for a couple of months right after the fire and the floods, we didn't have a lot of industry. So a lot of our businesses suffered, which means their employees suffered as well. So there was financial hardship. And then just the overall stress, PTSD is not only for those that serve in our military or first responders, but folks that have, with the 9 floods that we had, just how do they respond? How do they react mentally? How are they holding up for these things? So it's been tough on a lot of those folks, but Ruidosans are very resilient. Our businesses are strong. We have bounced back very quickly by working together. The village has a really great comprehensive plan that we then work on master plans for different parts of the community. And so we're able to clue in the citizens. Our staff is highly motivated to get things done. And so when the community sees the progress that's being made, it's easy to jump on that bandwagon, and we're a community full of optimists. And so we're just moving forward. So while things are tough and sometimes a little daunting, when we get forecasts of rain or it's clouding up, we have to just suck it up. And, there's nothing to be afraid of. We're not fearful here. We have good plans.
Well,
and
Mayor
so
Crawford,
we recognize that.
And so when people are going through this process, you mentioned in all the ways this is traumatic and stressful and financially difficult. And it's probably all of those things when you're working on a construction project anyway. But under these circumstances, what advice do you have for people as they navigate their way through this difficult process?
Well, you're not alone, and don't try to do it on your own. I mean, especially if you're rebuilding your home, our floodways and floodplains have been widened considerably. Reach out to the village. Our building department's here ready to serve. We've talked to Secretary Bailey with CID constantly, the Construction Industries Division. They are helping us expedite any building plans. We want to get these things through as quick as possible so people can start rebuilding their lives. And so I would just say, reach out to the village. We are here to serve you, to work with you. And, there's nothing to be afraid of.
You mentioned insurance a little bit earlier, and obviously as we have more and more, devastating disasters, not just in the community of Ruidoso, but all around the state, people all over the state are impacted by this. What's the experience that you're having in terms of moving forward, insuring homes and businesses in Ruidoso? And what kinds of efforts would you say are moving us in the right direction, even on policy making?
Well, we've worked closely with the governor's office and also the Secretary of Insurance, Superintendent of Insurance, Alice. We've worked with them on what can be done, talking to insurance companies, also working with their legislators on the FAIR Act plan, on as a last resort for homeowners and businesses, but also working with our thinning ordinances. The village of Ruidoso is the only, as far as I know, community that has our own forestry department. And we have thinning ordinances where we certify homes to make sure that there is free of debris, branches, trees aren't too close together, pine needles are raked up and taken care of, hardening of homes with putting more fire retardant material on the homes, just like metal roofs, getting rid of the things, one of the things that we use are railroad ties a lot here to build up areas of your property, whether it's flower beds or whatever, but removing those and putting in concrete or bricks or some other area. But just how do we harden the homes? How do we stay in constant communication with the insurance companies, their underwriters, to show them that we've done everything we can to make the homes safer from fire. And then, of course, the rates have gone up considerably, so it's getting more expensive to live in nature's playground here in Ruidoso, that's for sure.
I'd like to go back to the start of those fires or others that have happened in the community. And I'd like to give you a chance just a little bit to talk about what that emergency response looks like and to talk about how you're adapting, how your first responders are adapting to new challenges.
Absolutely. Well, it was, a year ago on a Monday morning, and we'd had our radio show, and it was a day like any other. And then we heard about a fire, which we do hear about those. And we respond to them very quickly and usually get control of them. But this fire was in a particular place, and with the wind direction from past tabletop exercises that we have with our emergency manager, fire department, police department, utility departments, we knew that this one could be the one. And when the salt fire kicked off on the other end of town, we knew that was limiting our access for folks to get out of the community when we were doing the evacuations. And so these things we practice, Casey, and no matter how much you plan, you're never prepared for when it's actual and it's live. But I was very proud of all of our departments. There was no panicking. We reached out to the community. Our folks in the community responded when we hit the evacuations. They left, they got in their cars. We have a ready, set, go program like many other communities, be ready, set, and then go, which means you have important paperwork, medicines and things like that in a go bag. So we practiced these things, and people heeded the warning and got out of town, or we could have had a catastrophic loss of life. And, we hit the evacuation as early as we thought we needed to. In a retrospect, maybe we should have hit it a little bit earlier because it took quite a while for folks to get out of town. In reality, we didn't realize how many folks we had in town, but we had a lot.
Yeah. I want to move on to the causes of the fires. It took a long time to determine, which is understandable, the cause of the South Fork fire being some lightning that had struck earlier on the previous Thursday. I remember it. I was there for that. And then the second fire, the salt fire, was determined to be human caused. In the year that has elapsed, what can you tell us about those investigations?
Well, they've concluded them. And to our knowledge, the Attorney General has failed to charge anybody or carry it any further. I have, as the mayor, requested and put in for a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act with the federal government, to look at the data on the lightning strike, because there's still a lot of concern over that lightning strike. And then also on the two individuals that were detained on the salt fire. What was the data? What was the information that the FBI and the BIA looked at that said there's really nothing here and let's move on? So, we're going to get that information because there are a lot of questions about that. And then the subsequent fires that we've had here lately this year. They're in odd areas where there is no lightning strike. There haven't been big wind events and things of that nature. So we're just keeping an eye out. If you see something, say something. That is a real thing around here. And we're just curious. But, Lord knows we need rain, and we're expecting some next week.
That's right. It looks like that monsoonal pattern may be kind of finally taking shape. And with that, we've talked a little bit along the way about flash flooding. And you mentioned some improvements that were done along the way. Tell me where you think those are at this point for the community, because I know flash flooding can be a concern for years after a fire sweeps through.
Absolutely. Well, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a concern for the next 3 to 5 years. Through the FEMA program, the NRCS, which is a USDA department, and also Homeland Security, the state's been a big help. And many wonderful local contractors. We've been able to do a lot of desilting of the river, and also our waterways, cleaning out debris, replacing culverts, upsizing culverts. Through grants and other things that we've sought and got, we were able to get new engineering done on the floodway and floodplain so that we know what to tell folks when they're trying to rebuild their homes, if indeed they can rebuild them, because some homes can't be rebuilt where they once were. for financial reasons and insurability reasons. But we've also put in detention ponds, and just have done a lot of work like that. I mean, the amount of trucks that we've had in and out of this community is unbelievable. The amount of work that's been done, being able to get the debris removal sites, the dump grounds. We've had a lot of help from Roswell, Alamogordo, the village. We have our own dump grounds. And then also working with the EPA, the New Mexico Environmental Department, on getting other sites that are temporary so we could start moving debris and get it moved out.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that work that's been done, and we need a lot more to do.
Yeah. Tell me about the status of Bonito Lake. I think it was a year ago, Memorial Day, we were speaking about. You were excited to have it reopened,
Yes.
and then it had to close right back
Yes.
down again. I believe that was related to the blue fires. And so how's it doing now?
It's great. I mean, the city of Alamogordo, who owns the Bonito Lake there, had done some mitigation efforts in the event there was another fire or flooding. They worked, and so there was no contamination in the lake, and it opened right back up probably a week later. And I know there's folks down there and enjoying the lake and fishing there today. So it's in good shape.
We've talked a little bit along the way about the mental health impacts, and you yourself have spoken to me about how you've been
Sure.
personally affected and how you have coped with that. So what would you say to folks who are still feeling that trauma, and what advice do you have for them?
Well, I would say it's normal. I mean, there's nothing abnormal about feeling apprehensive, even the daunting feeling, black cloud. Reach out for help. That we have mental health professionals here in the community. The village has access to mental health facilities, and we just have folks that can sit down and listen. And then that way, you're not in it by yourself. A lot of these things are stress over financial issues of how we're going to make it, because so many businesses and jobs were impacted. But reach out. Don't be ashamed of these things, and there's help here for you if you just ask.
Now, I was leaving Ruidoso on Monday, June 17th, and I saw the fire from South Fork. I saw there was air support already on it. So it was just really shocking and even traumatizing for me, who got on the road and 3 hours later was home, to see the amount of devastation that occurred over the following few hours. And so those people
Yes.
that were really involved in that evacuation event, that must have been really terrifying for them. You mentioned earlier that you might consider doing evacuations earlier. Have you determined how you're going to make that decision?
Well, I mean, it's all according to the data that we receive, and we made the call plenty early. Some of the questions that day we're asking people to leave too early, maybe. And the comment and the decision was made. I'd rather apologize for asking people to leave too early than not have given people enough time. But what we did learn when we had a community-wide evacuation, that there were a lot more folks in town than even what we knew, because June is just really the start of our summer season, and it really hadn't picked up all the pace. So next time, when there is a next time, we will make sure that we make that call ahead of time. We made it in plenty of time, but we were just really in awe at how many people were here. I mean, when you think about a community of roughly 8,000 full-time residents, and then on a big weekend, we can balloon to 30,000 or more people. We have a lot of analytical data that we are able to gather that gives us good ideas, but it just took people a little bit longer to get their stuff in their cars. Everybody every family's got pretty much 2 cars. So they loaded up 2 cars. Everybody was on the road going through the stop signs. We had all of our emergency response folks directing traffic to help facilitate it, move along. It's just that there were a lot more cars on the road than what I thought there were going to be. So we're making plans, that in the event this has to be done, that we go ahead and make the call earlier.
Do you think people came back into town a little too soon? Would you choose in the future to extend a little bit more on your evacuation orders?
Well, and it's funny you asked that, because that was a big question. When we evacuated people and we kept people out for that week, there were a lot of questions and a lot of pressure. People that were wanting to see their property, people wanting to see the damage, or they knew their home was still there, but that they didn't have any electricity or they didn't have any water. So where were they going to stay? But, we weren't trying to take away their property or deny them their liberties for that. But it's just things like that you have to try to get across to the public. And I think from now on, people will understand that we were trying to keep people out because it was still dangerous. And then once people came back into town, they were able to access their property. We made sure that we had water capacity so that people, as soon as they got here, and if their home wasn't destroyed or impacted, the first thing they're going to do is start using water, flushing, taking showers, those kind of things. So we had to make sure that we had plenty of water, not just for our citizens, but that our hospital was back up and operating. Oh. And that was two of the defining factors. Could we take care of people at the hospital, and did we have water?
So looking toward the future, it was obviously a very hot, dry year. We were hoping for a good winter, didn't really get it. Mm-hmm. What is your future outlook?
Well, the future is very bright. I mean, even though we've had a drought, we just had all of our hydrologists and just got a report last council meeting on our water wells, proving up our wells and just checking, inspecting what we expect. Do we have the water? Yes. And we have storage. All of our storage facilities are at capacity. The only thing that you will visibly see that is way down are our lakes, Alto Lake and Grindstone Lake. And both of those, the intake for the lakes, both were damaged because of the flood. The one in the Rio Ruidoso that feeds Grindstone Lake was totally destroyed. We have since had that rebuilt, and it is in operation today. We're just waiting on some rain. The same with Alto, that we had a lot of damage from debris coming down the mountain, that we had some damage. So that's all been repaired. And now then, again, we're just waiting on the rain.
I want to let you take a moment just to talk about some of the people and some of the heroes that emerged out of this tragedy in Ruidoso and honor them.
Well, absolutely. And I'm not going to name names because I'll forget so many. We have the usual suspects, the police officers, the firefighters. We had utility folks out there that are usually, checking meters or working on water leaks or things of that nature that were pulling people out of the flooding waters. We had regular citizens that were going around checking on homes, people that were out of town for the day that weren't able to get back in to go get their animals, check on their animals for them, take care of them. Folks that came in with stock trailers to load up cattle and horses and hauling them to Roswell, New Mexico, Alamogordo, Capitan. All the communities reached out immediately and said, we're here to help. But there are so many people that reached out either with their strong arms, their backs, their money, their homes, an extra room that put people up. Never talking about cost, but just reaching out, being a good neighbor. And that's one of the things that we really learned that we talked about yesterday in the community meeting is it doesn't matter your political persuasion. When there's times of need, you're just neighbors, you're just people. And so that's what I'm the most proud about our community is people reached out, gave a helping hand, people that hadn't really spoken in some years. Maybe they had a disagreement, all of those things, but so much of that was put aside. And then they were able to recognize what is important in this world. And so that's what I'm proud of. But there are so many heroes. We did see some folks that, the wasn't their best self that was being seen, but so many people just completely surprised me on just how strong they were, how mentally fit and how selfless they were that they reached out to everybody to help. And so there's so many of them, and we had people that banded together in communities like the Lincoln County Community Foundation that there was well over $3 million donated that went directly to people in need. It didn't have to go through any channels, any board. There wasn't any money taken off the top for administrative fees, anything like that. Money went right into their pockets. And then just talking to our partners, our utility partners that got out here, started putting in new power poles, putting in new gas meters, and just seeing those folks that, you don't think about it, but when it's dangerous like that, at any time you can have a mudslide or a landslide, if the clouds beat up, you could have rain, but they're out there doing their job every day, and they continue to do it without fear. So there were so many people, and that's what's made this community successful, and that's why we've come so far so fast.
Well, Ruidoso Mayor Lynn Crawford, thank you so much for joining us once again. As we are having this conversation, it is June 18th, just a day after the 1-year anniversary of the South Fork and Salt fires. And I know you had an action-packed day yesterday, and we just thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts with us.
Oh, absolutely grateful, and thank you for thinking of us and your listeners. So we appreciate all the things that you guys do.
And thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Remember, you can always keep updated with news at krwg.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter. I'm KC Counts, and we'll see you next time on Newsmakers here on KRWG Public Media.